Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. So welcome to the next episode of Sausage on a Fork. I am very pleased to say that I've been joined by none other than Peter Morton, who played Wayne Sutcliffe. Peter, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Hey, thanks for having me, Neil.
You're very, very welcome. Very welcome. Okay, so what we'll do, Peter, is we can cast your mind right back, and I mean way back, before Grange Hill. How did you get into acting? How did that start for you?
How did I get into acting?
Yeah.
So I think it was by accident, actually. I had a lot of energy as a kid, and a neighbor friend of ours, her kid was already doing a bit of acting, and I think I ended up going along to an audition with them, and I got called in at the same time. It was purely accidental, and from that I booked a couple of commercials. I did a commercial for British beef and French cheese, which was only shown in France.
Right.
And then, I just kind of continued, and I'd always seemed to be able to book whatever job I was going up for. I did a show for the BBC called Sam's Duck, in which I played Sam. Right. And that was a story written by Michael Morpurgo, who had also written War Horse and Why the Whales Came. So I actually got to go and spend time with him on his farm.
Wow.
And that was quite an amazing shoot. I think I was away from my family for like a couple of weeks there shooting that. And I just seemed to have that golden touch with regards to booking stuff. So I did that, and I did a show called D-Mob with Griff Jones and Martin Clunes. I did a feature film called The Power of One, which starred Morgan Freeman and Steve Dorff. And I was only doing kind of like background work on that, but I got to work on set with John G. Avildsen, who directed Rocky and The Karate Kid, two of my most favorite films. So I had a lot of experience before I came to audition for Grange Hill.
So just on The Power of One, then, did you go to Zimbabwe, isn't it, or Africa, isn't it?
So the movie was all set in South Africa.
Right.
And it's a boxing film, actually, based on a quite famous book. But they shot a lot of the studio stuff in England.
Right, okay.
Pinewood, and we were at a boarding school in, I think it was Essex or something. It was somewhere strange. And we did a lot of that stuff there.
So were you in a stage school or anything like that?
Yeah, so initially I was at a Red Roofs theatre school.
Right.
Red Roofs, Kate Winslet went there, and Chris Marshall. So it's a fantastic stage school for young performers. And my first audition for Grange Hill actually was with Red Roofs, I believe. So I auditioned a number of times for Grange Hill, and this was like the golden goose egg for me, because I was obsessed with Grange Hill as a kid.
Right.
I watched it growing up, particularly in the 80s. I remember, being profoundly affected by the death of Danny Kendall.
Right.
That was my era. So for me, Grange Hill was like the pièce de résistance of, acting as a kid. So when I initially got on an audition for it, I was over the moon. And, I got a call back for the role of Sam. And I remember being at a White City at the rehearsal rooms there. They had a massive group of us, and Kevin Bishop was also there. And I remember very distinctly, and I've spoken to Kevin about this since. I don't think he remembers it, but I remember he said a line that everyone else who was performing the line, including me, had kind of made a big thing out of. And the line was, I think it was to Jenny Long, to Anna actually, and it was, so who are you working for? Oxfam. And I remember all these other actors were doing it, including me, like, so who you working for, Oxfam, kind of taunting Jenny. And Kevin Bishop came in and he threw that line away, and everybody kind of stopped and took notice. And you know, I could tell there and then, I was like, he's got this, you know, because he's done something no one else has. And I was devastated, because I was like, it was the first time I'd not booked a gig. And, you know, this was everything to me. I wanted to be on Grange Hill so bad. So I remember going back from that particular casting, and I was just, you know, in pieces. The following year, they brought me back to read for Kevin, for George Stark's part. And didn't get that either. And then a couple of weeks after that, I got a call saying, oh, we'd like to see Peter for a one-on-one at White City again, for the part of Wayne. And initially, I think Wayne was only written for one block of episodes.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, Grange Hill, I don't know if others have told you this, but yeah, it would be 20 episodes in a series, and we'd shoot them in blocks. So there'd be blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And he was only meant to be in the first 4 episodes, I think.
Right.
So I went there, met the director, who was Nigel Douglas, and we had a chat, and I read the script. And then a couple of nights later, my agent, I had since then changed agent.
Right.
And I was now with Jackie Palmer, who, you know, Charlie Parker Swift was with Jackie Palmer at the time. So it was Colin Ridgewell and James Corden actually as well.
All right.
So she called my mum and told my mum that they wanted me for it. But my mum was really, she didn't want me to do Grange Hill.
All right.
She knew that it was going to be, you know, taking me out of school, and she wanted me to focus on my education, but she also knew how badly I wanted it. So there was a compromise there, and ended up booking it, and the rest is kind of history, I guess.
It's interesting you were saying there about you were only supposed to be in for a few episodes, because I did notice that. It was series 18 was your first one, and Wayne was missing for a big chunk of series 18. And I don't know about you, but it just seemed a little bit strange, because he came in like a blaze, didn't he? And he came in and he was just battering everyone and picking on people, and then all of a sudden he wasn't there. and he came back later on. You know, he was bullying Kevin and he was bullying Poppy from early days. And then all of a sudden he wasn't there until the sleepover at the Science Museum, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I forgot about
that. Can I just ask though, what was it like joining the show with an established cast, and you'd been watching it from home, like?
I mean, it was super exciting. I was, you know, seeing people like Stuart Organ and Lee Corns in the flesh, you know, after watching them for so many years. So, I was so excited. I remember that first 4 episodes, I wasn't even sure if they were going to bring me back.
Right.
And I had, in that time filming those episodes in that first block, I was quite close with Colin Ridgewell, because he was at my real school anyway. He was 2 years at real school. So we all share a taxi together. And there was a guy there called Roger Scoose, who he worked in the art department, and he had recently suffered a fire, and he had managed to get all of his VHS tapes replaced through insurance. Right. Now, all the ones that weren't actually too badly damaged, he gave to us, like the cinephiles in the group, the guys who love movies. And I was like a massive VHS collector at that point. And I remember being devastated because I wasn't there for block 2 when he was handing out all these VHS. Oh, no. So I missed out on the original Star Wars trilogy, which he gave to Colin A. But no, he was generous. He did save me a few of them. So, but I remember like the rehearsal. It was always such a great time at Grange Hill, because we'd rehearse. We'd have a big read through of the 4 episodes, the block, and then we'd go in and we'd rehearse it. And yeah, just seeing these like people that I'd been watching, the previous, I guess 8 or 9 years, and yeah, just being face to face with them, but being a part of it as well, knowing that I'd landed, it was very exciting.
Brilliant. And you mentioned there about Colin, but was there anyone else who you were sort of really close to on the show?
I mean, everyone. What ends up happening when you're on any sort of film set, you do develop close relationships with people, partly because you're, I guess, like faking emotions. You're going through these kind of traumatic things together, and yeah, you end up really developing close bonds with people. So a lot of them I'm still in contact with today. I mean, George Stark, for instance, he lives out here in Los Angeles.
All right.
I haven't seen him in a minute, but no, he's a journalist now, and he doesn't live far away from me. Emma Willis, who played Vicky Mead, we're incredibly close with her and her husband and their little girl. She's just about to have a little girl, actually. And she's an influencer now on Instagram.
All right, okay.
So if you check her out, she's the real deal. She does a lot of makeup work with the Kardashians and all that sort of thing. So we're very close. And then obviously like Aidan J. David's probably my closest friend from the cast. We've done a lot of work together over the years, collaborated on a lot of things, like from music to short movies and writing and stuff. So yeah, really, blessed to have I guess such a great group of people to grow up around.
No, I love that. I love the fact that you are in touch with them all still. So just going back then, so you've joined Grange Hill, and then you don't know if you're going to be coming back, but then you sort of, Wayne and Kevin, who you'd been bullying, sort of become a bit friendlier towards each other. Wayne still had that bit of a nasty streak, and there was a scene in your first series towards the end where Wayne had to eat a maggot sandwich.
Yeah.
No, this is just me being, might be me being a bit stupid, but how genuine was that maggot sandwich?
It was a genuine maggot sandwich for the close-up of the maggots that were all like pouring out. And then I was eating prawns. There was a prawn sandwich, and I'm not a big prawn guy, so it wasn't the most tasty of. Weirdly, I had to eat a few funny sandwiches in Grange Hill. I remember later on when I was doing the storyline with my brother, who was played by Eddie Marsan. They had me eat a fish finger and crisp sandwich.
Nice.
With spring carrot. I remember the bread was really chunky, and actually that was surprisingly tasty. I was like, oh, I could revisit this.
Yeah. So was there anyone that you sort of really enjoyed working with?
Yeah, I mean, so Laura Seiler was just, an incredible actress.
Yeah.
And just a delight to be around.
Yeah.
As a person, she had this remarkable ability to make people fall in love with her. Yeah. And I absolutely 100% loved her and being around her and working with her. And it's strange because she came in, I think, on my second year. And she was already established, as an actress. She was a Sylvia Young. She'd just done a movie with Julie Walters called Intimate Relations. And so she was kind of like a rising star. And I think Grange Hill were, to be able to have her.
Yeah.
So in that first year, we didn't interact too much because we had kind of separate storylines going on. But at the end of that year, they brought us in for like kind of like a rehearsal to see how we interact with each other, to give ideas, kind of like a spitballing thing, to see for the following year whom they might be able to pair up. And I remember Laura doing, she was kind of coming on to me a little bit in these improvisations. Yeah. And I remember thinking that she's playing this very confident, so Wayne has to be a little bit, kind of like taken aback and not confident. He's not had this sort of interaction before. And I think the producers saw that, and they saw the connection between us, and they were like, well, let's do something with these guys.
Yeah.
So then the following year we had probably the best storyline that I
Yeah.
had in the entire time that I worked on the show.
Can I just ask, could you tell at that age just how good Laura was?
It's really difficult to, because when you're that age and being in the position we were in, well, we were like, there was a lot of ego,
Right.
I guess we were confident,
Yeah.
It's only in retrospect, I think, that I look back on that time and the work I did with Laura, I realized that she was actually teaching me a lot about acting and being subtle, not being too over the top.
Yeah.
Because the camera sees absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So I knew that she was very, very good at what she was doing, but I don't think I really appreciated how good, because I was kind of in my own zone as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was a bit of a dance between the two of us. And, looking back on that stuff now, I saw some footage, of maybe like a couple of years back, and I thought, oh my God, I'm terrible. But Laura still, she's blowing me out of the water, but there's just something that she was naturally gifted. I think that's what it was,
Yeah. So just going back then, just to the year before you sort of worked with Laura, series 19, Wayne was in a lot more than he had been in his first series. He went back to bullying, and he was back to, threatening Kevin, making sure Kevin kept all the air going and was sort of trying to get him in trouble and all that. But I think Wayne's main story in that series was with Poppy and victimizing her and bullying her. And when you watch them at first, you think it's like a racist thing. Did you think it was a racist thing?
No, actually, surprisingly, I never thought that. I wasn't really at that point deciphering the scripts. I was kind of, the scripts were coming and I was like, cool, I've got some scenes.
Yeah.
Rather than, thinking about the meaning. And Aisha, again, she's a remarkable young lady. And we were so close, again, I just love being in her company, and we always had such a laugh. So it never really felt like we were doing anything other than acting, reading those scripts.
Yeah.
I think though, like in my personal life, I was starting to get quite a lot of hate from, from Black guys in my school and stuff, because I think they genuinely believed it was a racist thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting what Grange Hill did then with bringing Lauren into that particular storyline. And she was the one who managed to kind of get to the bottom of what was going on and diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of clever writing from their part to show that Wayne, he was misunderstood. He was an attention seeker, and he had, troubled home life.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, to be honest with you, personally speaking as well, I absolutely fancied the pants off of Aisha.
Right. Okay.
And I think that, when you're younger as well, that's the boys kind of play that way with girls they like, don't they?
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a little bit of that in that storyline as well. He had feelings for her that he couldn't, properly articulate, but he was still a horrible little sod to her.
Yeah. I mean, like the thing is as well, I guess I said, like at first you think it might be a racist thing, but in one of the scenes, Wayne actually says to Poppy, she says, "Why are you doing this to me?" And he says, "Because you're a victim and you'll always be a victim." So it was like he was just doing it because he could. But then, as you've just said there, he had a troubled home life, didn't he? And it became a bit apparent that he was taking his anger out on Poppy because he couldn't take it out on his brother. Because his brother would have battered him, wouldn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah. And I think there was jealousy there as well from Wayne's point of view. He was a little bit jealous of Poppy and the fact that she was able to be so academic and liked, I think.
So you've mentioned there the fact that Eddie Marsan played your brother. Did you have any idea that he was going to go off and have this career that he's had?
Yeah. So we were always excited whenever they brought in a family member
Right.
on Grange Hill, because we were like, who's going to play my mum? Who's going to play my brother, or my aunt, or whatever it was. So when Eddie came in, at this point he was he'd done a handful of different jobs, I think. But he kept himself to himself very much so. I think we rehearsed a few bits, but I was also like, this guy, he doesn't look anything like me. What's the deal here? Like, couldn't they've got a really handsome, older brother? Yeah. Again, it was all ego, I was thinking about things from a different kind of point of view. But I love the fact that he is as successful as he is, because I'm always telling people, that's my brother. Like, what are you talking about? But yeah, he's gone from strength to strength, and he's such a fantastic actor,
Yeah. What was it like to work with him?
It was good. I mean, he was. We didn't do a lot of bonding, because we didn't. It wasn't required of that character relationship. So he was quite intense. But at that point in time, I think I was quite an intense young actor as well. So we both had our levels of intensity, and we kept ourselves to ourselves in that respect. Yeah. So I did see him a few years ago, actually, in Soho, and we walked straight past each other, and I was about to stop him and say, Eddie, how you doing? But I just knew he'd be like, who are you? So I didn't bother. It would have been too much to explain.
Yeah. And in general, though, how did you find the relationship between the kids and the adults?
It was good, yeah. I mean, as an adult now, I can only imagine what it must have been like for some of those adults how to work with us, because we were a handful, Yeah. Like I mentioned, a lot of egos, a lot of energy, a lot of hormones. But they were very patient, and when it came to doing a scene with somebody like Lee Corns, or Sally Gahagan, Rachel Bell, Stuart Organ, you kind of just knew that we're working now. These guys are professionals, so you kind of brought your A game. And I always remember, whenever I did scenes with those guys, I would always try my hardest to impress them, to show them that I was an actor as well,
Yeah.
So that's the way I kind of approached it. And like I said, they were very patient, and I can only imagine what must have been going through their mind a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So series 20 then, which was your third year, you didn't seem to be in that one as much as you'd been in the year before. Was there any reason for that?
I can't remember that. What were the main storylines?
Series 20 was when, obviously, at the beginning, you became a bullying counsellor. And then, and then towards the end was when they did the Animal Farm, yeah.
Yeah. It might have been like my exam year. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Yeah, we might have been going through GCSEs at that point in time.
97, that was.
Is that the year?
Or you would have filmed in 96, I imagine, so.
Yeah. Was that the year of the gun, or was that the previous year?
The gun was the previous year, yeah.
Yeah, because the gun stuff was cut out on the reruns.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, because shortly after they aired that, there was that tragedy in Dunblane.
Oh, right, I see.
And they went ahead and removed all of that footage. So when they were for a while they're doing reruns on BBC Two on Sunday mornings. They cut out all that footage. So those episodes were like 10 minutes long, some of them.
Wow.
Because they removed all the gun stuff. But yeah, I can't actually remember the bullying counsellor year so much. I think probably because I wasn't in it that much.
Right.
I think they were introducing, that's the year they introduced the Double Dare Gang, right? And yeah, so they had a lot of moving parts, I guess, going on.
Right.
A lot of different characters to introduce, and storylines to play out. So I'm sure I would have wanted to have been in it more.
Yeah, and then the year after that, then series 21 was like I don't want to say your pinnacle, but you were massively on the forefront with the Judy, Sean, Alec stuff, and that for me is Grange Hill again, looking at another social issue with the knife crime, Ruth Caraway, who was on last time, she said it's like Grange Hill had a crystal ball to what big social issues were going to come out. And knife crime is rife, isn't it? You know what I mean? But how was that for you? Was that like filming those scenes? Because obviously you really got to grips with your character there.
Yeah, so I think one of the great things about Grange Hill was it always was at the forefront of what was actually happening with kids at school. You know, it kept it real, and it's pretty upsetting that kids don't have anything like that in this day and age. Stephen Andrews, who directed all the gun stuff, actually, all the pellet gun stuff, he became a producer that year, and he had decided he wanted to go down that route, and he was really into, like, you know, movies, and particularly Tarantino was, you know, big at that time frame. So he wanted to do something that was, you know, I guess compelling and exciting. Sean, Ian Robertson, who plays Sean, he again was a, you know, Sylvia Young with Laura. They were actually dating in real life at the time, and he had just done a movie called Small Faces. So again, he was coming off the success of that, and they were very excited about having Ian, because, you know, he was a kind of a hot young thing. And it got kind of difficult quite early on, because, you know, Laura and I, our relationship, because Laura lived about 10 minutes away from where I lived. You know, we grew up in the same town. We were again taking taxis to work together. So Laura and I were getting much closer because we were spending so much time together. And her relationship with Ian then was kind of suffering a little bit. And there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that, in retrospect, you know, I guess it kind of worked, helped with, you know, the actual performances and stuff. But there was, like, Ian was kind of ahead of his time, you know. He was a old soul in a young body. So he was taking everything, you know, very seriously as an actor. And he didn't really kind of slot into the rest of the cast, you know. He was more friendly actually with the adult actors. You know, he'd prefer to spend his time with them. And he just, so initially Ian and I got on really well, because I think we have our birthdays like one day apart. I think I'm the 27th of May. I think he's the 28th. I remember going to see Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, with him. Him and I went to see that, super excited. But then we quickly started to, you know, as the series went on, we kind of drifted apart. And it is a bit of a regret of mine that we didn't, you know, like, it was probably my fault, to be honest with you, because again, you know, being on that show for as long as I was at that point, you get territorial. So whenever there's a new person who comes in, it's like a dog, you know, like sniffing around, like, oh, they get all the best things. Like, what's this guy doing? What's you know? So in retrospect, you know, I might not have been as, I guess, accommodating with him as I could have been, but it ended up working for the show. And ironically, Tom Carey and I got on great. You know, got on like a house on fire. Would
you say that was your favorite sort of storyline then, that one?
I'd say all the stuff I did with, you know, Laura was the best stuff I did on the show. And then also, like, you know, at the end there, I'm not jumping ahead too much, but I did get to work with Aidan, and, you know, we had always joked because they kept us apart. We had like two scenes together, I think, in the first year that I joined. And in the final year, they finally kind of they put us together. So that was always good.
Obviously there was Judy's death on the show, and that your next series, then series 22, was more about you sort of trying to deal with that a bit more and coping with it. Obviously blaming Alec for it and picketing the cafe and then vandalizing it outside. So Wayne was, you know, he'd always been an angry young man, hadn't he?
He's a hothead. That's what they call him in America. He's a hothead.
And I think Laura had sort of calmed him down a lot, hadn't she? Do you know what I mean? So obviously Judy, when the character wasn't there, obviously, you know, Wayne was the character that he needed someone to blame, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He wasn't big on taking responsibility for his own actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. In real life, Laura, who was with Sylvia Young, had decided to leave the show,
Right.
because she was being offered a lot of like different opportunities. A lot of people wanted her, and I remember being gutted about it.
Right.
I was like, I didn't want her to go at all, because I was just we were very close, and just loved being in her company. So yeah, when they wrote that, the falling out the window stuff, it was some challenging stuff to film.
Yeah.
And it was upsetting to say goodbye to my friend. But I kind of knew as well that she was just going to go on to do great stuff.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, it was bittersweet, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
This second year of Grange Hill, I had auditioned for the Famous Five. They did a reboot of the Famous Five, and they had myself and my sister, Sarah, under consideration. They brought us back for tests in London, and they were very interested in having me for the Famous Five. I knew that I wouldn't be able to do Grange Hill and the Famous Five.
Right.
And I just didn't want to do it. So that final audition, I remember being like just very moody and very like distant. And yeah, funnily enough, the Jemima, who starred in the Famous Five, Jemima Roper, I'd worked with her just before I did Grange Hill. We did a movie for the children's film unit called The Higher Mortals. So I was very close there. So it just goes to show what a small world it all is. Because I remember when I seen the Famous Five, I was like, oh, could have been working with Jemima.
Yeah.
That would have been good fun. So yeah, you kind of, I understood that, some of the better agents at the time were kind of saying to their clients, don't spend too long in Grange Hill.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because, you might end up getting typecast. It might not be good for your career.
Yeah.
And I think like Laura's agents were savvy enough to recognize that she had a lot of potential for other stuff. So yeah, that's why she moved on. And then, that whole year, I think it was again, I'd reached, as you said, like the pinnacle of storylines. I'd done like the best stuff. So all that other stuff kind of felt like, really,
right. I get you.
Wayne's helping homeless people now. Like, what's the deal? It's just it was all a bit strange.
Yeah, because Wayne then became friends with Sarah Jane. And it's this storyline sort of hark back a little bit to like the zenith of Grange Hill with a drug storyline with Sarah Jane. I mean, it was nowhere near the scale of Just Say No. But Wayne became, we realised sort of Sarah Jane was becoming addicted to the antidepressants, didn't he? And he said he'd help her with it. But what I noticed about that was it was unusual in the sense that story came out sort of towards the end of the series, when normally that storyline would have been getting wrapped up, wouldn't it, at that time? And it carried over into the next series, which didn't always happen, did it, with Grange Hill? There was the occasional time, but
yeah, they had kind of a cliffhanger there, didn't they? Yeah, and it's like Laura and I, Laura Hammett and I had, been together from the start. She was in my year, so we were very close as well. And she's a very funny young lady. If you get a chance to talk to her, she's quite a character, and she's got plenty of stories to tell. But yeah, working with her was a lot of fun, and we did something in a cave, if I remember right.
Yeah, the Outward Bound thing. Yeah,
Outward Bound's cave and stuff. yeah. Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about this stuff in so long. Yeah, I mean, I'm just stunned that this day and age, they really don't have anything for kids that tells it like it is.
Yeah.
Keeps it real, I mean, as a parent myself now, there is this instinct to protect your child.
Yeah.
And I think, out here in the States, they talk about helicopter parenting a lot.
Right.
I remember growing up that Grange Hill was a bit risque, a bit taboo, a bit naughty,
Yeah.
But my mum never stopped me from watching it. I think she understood the value of it.
Yeah.
because the things that we learned from watching our peers, other kids,
definitely
going through very traumatic things like death and stuff, and drug addiction, violence. People are resilient, especially children. They're resilient. They take it in and they accept it for what it is, and then they're more able to deal with it. I don't feel like there's anything like that in this day and age for kids.
No.
I
wouldn't say there was. So moving on to your last series, then, you were well into sixth form by this stage, and you formed a band with with Arnie.
So we still, to this day, we write songs. We've always been writing songs. I play guitar, and I love writing songs. I just love.
So you were really playing guitar then, were you?
Yeah, that was all. Yeah, and the song was the song that Aidan and I wrote. It's called Same Old Story. We at that point had a bit of control in our storylines because we were very friendly with the producers and the writers, and we were able to kind of direct them for where we wanted to go. We didn't know that they would, like, literally, I think 2 days before we were set to film the big concert, they were like, "So where's the song? Have you got the song?" And we're like, "Sorry, I mean, I thought you guys were going to help us, make that come to life." And they're like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess we better book a recording studio." So we literally had 2 days to record that song.
Right.
And not everybody was on the same page about what the song was.
Right, okay.
Because Aidan and I had a very, like, if you hear the version that Aidan and I do of that song, it's kind of unique, and it's definitely not what it was.
Right.
I guess we were having, delusions of being the next Ant and Dec or something.
Right, okay.
It did seem to be, like, if we do a song and we get it on TV, that could be, a launching pad for our career as musicians. But alas, it was not.
So then, your time at Grange Hill comes to an end. 90 or so episodes later, you left Grange Hill. So what did you do then?
Just kind of bummed around.
Right, okay.
No, so after leaving Grange Hill, the year before I left, I got a little part on EastEnders.
Right.
That was a big regret for me, because I think what happened with that is my agent then told the producers at Grange Hill that I wasn't coming back because I booked EastEnders. And I was pretty annoyed with them because this wasn't something we discussed. And it just so happens that the producers of EastEnders, the people who got me in on that show, used to work on Grange Hill. Everybody knew each other because of Elstree. So my brief appearance on EastEnders, which ended with me saying, "I'll be in touch," as if I was going to be a recurring character, it ended up with me having to go back to Grange Hill with my tail in between my legs, saying, "I'm going to come back for the final." After that, I actually I booked a commercial campaign, which was of Darren and Lisa, and it's for Comfort fabric softener.
All right.
So I don't know if you remember these characters, but they were like little dolls made out of cloth.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing the voice of Darren for that.
All right.
So I was like, "Oh, Lisa, you're so soft." It was, and we did, that ran for like 6 years or something. They did radio campaigns, so that kept me busy. And then it became like a hustle because I wasn't weird transitional. Even now, I don't look my age. I'm 40. I'm going to be 41 this year.
Right.
But when I don't think I look 41.
No, you don't. You really don't.
But I was in a weird transitional phase there for a long time where I couldn't play too old, couldn't play too young. And I just, it became increasingly difficult to get auditions and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like Grange Hill had anything to do with that. Right. I doubt it. I mean, I did do a lot of the other work that I did, like episodes of Hope and Glory with Lenny Henry, which is something I'm very proud of. I think I do a half decent performance in that particular episode, but that was whilst I was doing Grange Hill.
Right.
So after leaving Grange Hill, I just, it became difficult, it became tough to get auditions. I ended up doing a lot of extra work.
Oh, right. Okay.
I just love being on film sets.
Yeah.
And I love being around it.
Yeah.
And if I can get paid to sit there, read a book and eat some food, and then, spend 5 minutes on set with Steve Coogan or Christopher Nolan or Ridley Scott, because I worked on some of these huge productions, and you learn a lot from just being in that environment.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I did a lot of extra work before I ended up moving out to Los Angeles.
Right. So then moving out then to Los Angeles, how did that happen?
It was a girl. So
Right.
yeah, the girl I was dating in the UK said, she's also from England. She was like, I'm going to go and try my luck in LA. There's a good industry out there for acting and stuff. And I'd never been before. So we together, she had been like 4 or 5 times visiting and doing classes and stuff. And I decided that, I didn't want to lose her. So I was going to go with her, and we moved out here together. I'd never been before. And yeah, that was 12 years ago now.
Right. So
she's now my wife, and we have 2 little American babies. So
excellent.
It worked out good.
So you moved out to LA. Is that when you made Over the Hill?
Yeah. So in I think a year after moving here, Aidan was like, I'm coming out to visit. I was like, yeah, you are. Come on, let's do this. So we came out here, and Aidan and I, we've been making short movies for, since Grange Hill. Funnily enough, Aidan and I did not get along.
Oh, right.
When we first met. Yeah. And I was like 12, 13 years old. I had a crush on Jenny Long.
Right.
And I asked her out. And we never went out. We never dated or anything. But, for like a week, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. Apparently.
Right.
Until Aidan phoned me to tell me that she didn't want to go out with me. So this is how Aidan and I bonded, with this, with him dumping me on Jenny Long's behalf.
That's a proper kid stuff, that, isn't it? That's a proper kids relationship, that one. Like,
absolutely. So and then we just became close. We'd hang out most weekends, and we'd always make movies on camcorders. We had little action men, like the Star Wars toys.
Yeah,
and we had basically our own mini Hollywood. So we'd make movies with those figures, and then we make films with us as well. So we'd already done a whole bunch of them. And when he came out to visit, I was like, look, we have to utilize this time. We have to do something creative. And it just so happens Charlie Parker Swift, also known as John Hudson, also known as Lawrence. He's got so many different names. But yeah, Charlie and I had grown up in High Wycombe together and gone to the same drama school. He was living out here, and we got him involved, and we just decided, it'd be fun to do kind of a Spinal Tap style mockumentary based on ourselves, egotistical young actors trying to make it in Hollywood. So that's basically how it came about. We took a road trip to Vegas, and we got some footage there, and we had a good laugh making it. Actually,
I love Over the Hill, honestly. Like, when I knew you were coming on, I watched it again the other day, and you know what? I love it because you just take the myth out of yourself and everyone you come in contact with as well. I absolutely loved it as well, and I just think your character in it is brilliant as well. Like, because it's so far removed from you, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I'm not sure we could do that in this day and age where everybody's very sensitive to cultural appropriation and actual gay actors playing gay roles and stuff. I decided to play myself as gay because it wouldn't have worked if Aidan and I were just 2 egotistical actors. You had to have that juxtaposition for the comedic purposes, basically. So I decided to play it very over the top, gay version of myself,
and it comes across really, really, really well as well. So there's another film that I wanted to talk to you about, because I watched this a while back. Actually, it was Kieran the Demon Hunter.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I showed that to my brother-in-law actually last week or a couple of weeks back. He was staying with us over Christmas time, and my wife, his sister's in it as well. Yeah, so I met after moving out here a gentleman named Andy McKenzie, and he was just an independent filmmaker. He was really passionate about not only film but music as well.
Yeah.
Because he used to be a music producer, and he auditioned me on the street.
Right.
With my guitar. I remember he was like, "Oh, you brought a guitar along," because it was for a different movie. It's something called the OG Girls, and yeah, I remember playing guitar to random people on the street, and he was like, I'm hiring you. So he would literally pay us each day, cash in hand for, I probably shouldn't say that, but for these movies. And we shot a whole bunch of them with him. And yeah, Kieran was the one that I was really excited about because I'm a huge horror movie fan.
Right.
I helped develop a company out here called Mad Monster, and they're still going strong. They do these conventions across the country. So, like the Exorcist, for example, even though it's not considered a horror movie by its director, who considers it a movie about faith, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Right.
I think it's a remarkable film. So playing a priest demon hunter who expels demons by sucking them out of people's mouths and puts them in bottles like a genie. It was a very unique concept. I'm not sure the execution was so great, but he was literally one man on his own filming on the street with a camera, and he always paid us. He always took good care of us and took us out for food and stuff. So yeah, it was a great time filming, but yeah, the movie itself is a little bit strange.
So you've just mentioned The Exorcist. Can I ask you about William Friedkin?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know that you've got a particular story about William Friedkin that maybe you didn't know I knew about.
I didn't know you knew. I mean, I've got a few stories about William Friedkin.
So the one I've heard about is you were working in the Chinese theatre, and there was a showing of The Exorcist, and William Friedkin had turned up.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fascinating guy. He's a force of nature. He was invited, actually, where Linda Blair and William Friedkin were invited to that particular screening for the 40th anniversary. Linda Blair showed up really late.
Right.
Like unprofessionally.
Right.
And he was not happy about that, for starters. Because he kind of came out for her. He was supporting a charity of hers. She does a lot of work with dogs. So he wasn't too happy about that. And this particular screening, he was incredibly fussy about the way that the movie was presented. So there was a particular guy at Warner Brothers called Ned Price, who represented William Friedkin's vision for how he wanted the movie to be displayed. And so I was in talks with Ned Price as well as with William, who Billy said, if Ned Price signs off on it, then we'll do it. And Ned Price did. He signed off on it. And he came along and he watched. So I always do I would do my Q&As before the movie.
Right.
And he stuck around after the Q&A to watch the movie on the screen.
Yeah.
Just the first few minutes, and he was furious.
Right.
And he was saying, that is not. And I was like, this is what Ned Price signed off on. And he's like, no, that is not correct. It shouldn't be like displayed like that. I think it was something to do with the blacks being too dark.
Right.
Or not being dark enough. In the end, I've worked at the Chinese theatre for I still work there.
All right.
Part-time. I've worked there for over a decade now. We have a projectionist there. He's a fascinating guy. He's really, really talented. He came down and he explained to William Friedkin what the issue was. And I remember William Friedkin was there writing down the napkins like this, and this, and it all became clear to him. And he was like, to our projection, he was like, you should be working for me, basically.
Right.
But yeah, he's pretty terrifying. He's basically like he's like a really intelligent Donald Trump.
All right, okay.
with the way he speaks, because he's from New York, but he is just encyclopedic when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, he knows. He he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, just to be around someone like him is just, it's kind of special.
Brilliant. And then the other thing I was told to ask you about was
Is this Charlie Parker Swift?
was Corey Feldman.
Yeah, so Corey Feldman, he's a character. Yeah, I mean, I've been really lucky, like with living out here in LA. I remember the first few months we were living out here, all the stories I had heard were like, oh yeah, when you move to LA, you'll see like a celebrity in your local shopping store. Yeah. And we had lived out here for about 5 months and I hadn't seen anyone.
Yeah.
And then one day I went to a coffee shop, and in the space of like 5 minutes, I saw like, I think 3 or 4 massive stars, Rosario Dawson and what's that gentleman's name? Richard Lewis, who's quite a well-known comedian. He's in Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I then started working with Mad Monster.
Right.
And we put on these conventions, and they would basically invite all these horror actors to come along and sign for people and do Q&As. In fact, they got one coming up in a couple of weeks, maybe at the end of next week. So Nev Campbell's going to be there, and a whole bunch of other people. But Corey was initially, I contacted Corey to come out for a Lost Boys screening,
right,
for anniversary screening of the film. And I contacted him on Facebook actually, and we spoke for a long time, and he eventually agreed to do it for a price.
Right.
And he did tell me to like don't let my manager know, don't let him know. So we got him out for the screening, but he was Corey Feldman showed up dressed like Michael Jackson with an entourage, and he phoned me from the parking lot, and he was like, "Where are you, man? All these people are looking at me. Can you come and help me?" So I was like, "Yeah, Corey, I'll be right there." I went and found him, and he's wearing like a white kind of suit with mirrors all over it and sunglasses. And I'm like, are you wondering why people are looking at you? He's got these 2 massive bodyguards on either side of him. But yeah, he's quite the character. You know, he lives in his own planet, Corey's world. But yeah, I've encountered him a few times over the years, and again, he never remembers who I am. But
right, okay. So I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but what do you actually do now?
I just hustle, you know. I'm hustling on a day-to-day. I do a lot of writing. I've got a couple of projects, you know, that we're trying to get financed and produced. So there's a British gangster film that I've written, which hopefully in the next few years we'll go into production on that. It's kind of a unique, it's like a Shakespearean tragedy. Basically, I wanted to do a British gangster film that didn't have any bad language. Right. Because whenever you watch a British gangster film, it's always like, F this, F that. Yeah. So I thought, well, let's do something that's more like Only Fools and Horses, you know, the type of, the rhythm of the dialogues that I used to hear growing up. So I wanted to, first of all, take out all the bad language, and I wanted the women in the plot to be like the kind of power figures. And yeah, I've ended up with something that's kind of cool. I'm excited about it. It's called Street Lies.
Right.
So yeah, if anyone's listening, they want to get involved with that, you can contact me. And then I've got another screenplay as well called Outrun the Sun. So I do a lot of writing. I still act, you know, when the opportunity arises. There was a movie that I shot a couple of years ago called Synced. I play an American in it actually, but it's a British director, and he's an award-winning director. He did a short movie called 2 Minute Time Machine, which is really, really good. So either 2 minute or 1 minute time machine. But we shot this like 5 years ago, and he's still. So I'm hoping I make the final cut, because there'll be some good stuff in there. But yeah, it's just like, other than that, you know, my wife, she's a makeup artist. So, you know, we hustle in between being parents, stay-at-home parents. And yeah, I've worked at the Chinese Theatre as a tour guide for 10 years. Right. And I'm really lucky there, because they allow me to come and go as I want, basically.
Right, okay.
You know, I have like freedom to do what I like. So, you know, I can, you know, for instance, I want to go in tomorrow and do some tours, I can do. And it's a very cool place to work because I also, if I want, I can go to some of the, the biggest premieres.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that if you've got any sway on getting into them.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, I can't go to them.
Yeah.
I will work them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll sweep up popcorn around Margaret
Right,
Robbie's feet. And that's what I did. I don't tend to do it so much anymore because you get a little bit jaded when you work a lot of these events. But the premiere for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a few years back, I was like, I'm working this 100%. And that was probably, out of all the ones I've worked, that was probably the most impressive because everybody was there that night. I saw Britney Spears and Chris Hemsworth. Literally every time I looked up, I was face to face with a new movie star.
Wow.
And I actually watched the movie in the room with all those guys that night. So that was very cool.
Yeah, brilliant. So then just a few questions just to finish off, Peter. Mm-hmm. Just going back to your days on Grange Hill, other than Wayne Sutcliffe, who was your favourite character on the show?
Well, I mean, I guess like Ziggy and Robbie, watching those guys, they were a huge influence on a young man. Tegs as well. Sean Maguire, funnily enough, he lives around the corner from me. So I was in, there's a shopping, I'm always trying to use American terms when I realize that I'm speaking to a Brit. I don't want you guys taking the mick out of me. So there's a shop called Trader Joe's, and it's basically a grocery store. But I was in Trader Joe's and I saw this guy with his two kids. I heard the accent. I was like, Sean Maguire. So I couldn't not go up and speak to him. So I went and introduced myself, and I was like, I was in Grange Hill a few years below you. And he was really, really nice and cool about it. And his kids are, not too far off my kids. And we spoke about the chaperones because they would always talk about Sean as the beacon of light, of the person we should look up to, because I guess he's just a very humble, kind of down to earth guy. One of their catchphrases, the chaperones, was like always, "You've changed, but not for the better." So they like to keep us, really grounded. So I mentioned the chaperones to him, and then weirdly enough, like 3 days later, I was out walking the neighborhood with my wife, and we bump into him and his wife and the kids, and they're literally around the corner. I haven't seen him since.
Right.
But like him and Rachel Victoria Roberts, that era was the kind of most influential for me.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something? You got something to say?
I'll just say for anyone that's listening, Peter's done this entire interview with his daughter on his shoulder.
She's been bored stiff listening to her daddy rattle on about his past. Yeah.
So then, if you couldn't have played Wayne Sutcliffe, which other character would you like to have played?
Oh, well, you know what? I still to this day would love to have been Sam.
Right.
Because I would have worked with Aidan quite early on. Yeah. And also, so Kevin was a force of nature, and he is a force of nature. He, I think he proudly says he was the only person to get expelled from Grange. And he was kind of let go because he was just, he was a little hurricane. So it would have been interesting, I guess, to see if I had played Sam, how that character would have progressed, and what would have happened to Wayne and all of that stuff. So I guess that would be the answer, because that was the one that got away, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that was the one you were upset about not getting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. So my final question then: why do you think there's still such affection for Grange Hill?
What Phil Redmond created was unique. It's unique in the annals of TV history. It's never been repeated. For all its controversies, we were speaking about this earlier, it was actually providing a service.
Yeah.
It was, I got so many messages from people after the bullying storyline, like fan letters. I'm sure there's a lot of letters that weren't sent to me as well.
Right. Okay.
But, people saying that you helped me get through this. And I think that's why, it kind of resonates with the people who knew about it. Recently they announced they're going to do a Grange Hill movie, or maybe like a revisit. it's been a long time coming. You know, I think absolutely go back and let's look at what the kids are doing in this day and age in their school life, and how, you know, social media affects them, and how the conditioning of the world that they live in affects them in their school life. I'm always fascinated. You know, my daughter's at school at the moment, and I don't know what she does. You know, she comes back and I'm like, so how was school today? She's like, good. It's like, because of COVID.
What did you do? Nothing.
Exactly. Like, come on, give me more than that. Did you learn anything? So yeah, we do. And as parents as well, I think Grange Hill, for the older people at the time, it was an insight into what their kids could be getting into.
Yeah.
So it gave them like a, you know, a little warning or things to look out for. And that's why, you know, there hasn't been anything like it since, and there probably never will be, because you can't, there's certain stuff you can't do or say anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's special.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud to be part of its history. And I think, you know, Neil, you were doing a fantastic job here. I mean,
thank you very much.
No, thank you, man, for creating such a cool little podcast, and, you know, giving people who are genuinely interested in hearing about it the opportunity to, you know, listen to us rattle on about our glory days.
Yeah. No, it's been brilliant, Peter. It's been great having your take on, you know, what it was like being a member of the cast, and your experiences and stuff. Yeah, it's been fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on. For anyone listening, I'll speak to you next time. Cheers. Thank you.